today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this delicious pickled 3-bean end of the garden salad. Now I call it end of the garden salad because it's a little of the green beans, a little of the kidney beans, it's a little garbanzo beans, some onions, and some bell peppers. Put it all together with some sugar and some vinegar, and you have this delicious pickled 3-bean salad. Stay tuned. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of In the Kitchen with Baker Girl. Thank you, Jesus. It is a beautiful fall day to be in the kitchen. Now, because we're in fall right now and the gardens are starting to wane off a little bit, but we still have some produce coming in. At least the farmers market still have some produce coming in. So today I'm going to use green beans that I got from a local farm. I'm also going to use bell peppers that I got from a local farm and onions. And I'm also, because I love garbanzo beans, and this is pretty standard, red kidney beans in my 3-bean pickled salad, I'm going to use these canned beans. You can use the dry ones when you soak them and you cook them, but just to make life a little easier, I'm going to use the can, and I suggest you do too, because it's a lot quicker than soaking and cooking your own beans. And with the aid of some vinegar, some sugar, and some spices, we will have some delicious pickled 3-bean salad. Before I jump into the full video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're new here, by the way, nice to meet you. My name is Sarah. I am a baker, a canner, a homemaker. And in my kitchen, I enjoy taking you along with me and showing you my different videos for how I cook, bake, can, whatever I happen to be doing in the kitchen that day. So if you like that sort of content, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out anytime I upload a video. And also, if you are a returning subscriber, hey, welcome back. So girls, put your aprons on. Come on, let's hop in the kitchen and let's get to canning. Now, like I say, since this is coming to the end of the gardens, you can use whatever beans you happen to have or whatever beans you happen to like, as long as they are the same beans that you feel comfortable eating. A lot of recipes call for wax beans. I cannot get a hold to wax beans, so these are just your standard green beans that they always have at the farmer's market. And I like garbanzo beans and red kidney beans, but you can use lima beans. As a matter of fact, the Ball canning book calls for lima beans. But you can use any bean you like. You can use all garbanzo beans and skip the red kidney beans, or you can use all red kidney beans and skip the garbanzo beans, whichever ones you prefer. You can also use black beans. So that's entirely up to you. And because I love bell peppers in anything like this that's pickled, I'm going to be using a generous amount of bell pepper and onions. Love onions. Those are the standard ingredients that goes into my pickled 3-bean salad. And actually, I'm probably going to be using 4 cans of beans, but this is give or take. I don't have to use this many. I can use less. I can use, say, 2 of the garbanzo and 1 of the red kidney. It just depends on the amount of pickled salad you want to make. So behind me on my stove, I have my jars hot and in my canner, and I'm sterilizing my jars. I'm going to let those, I washed them and put them in my canner and brought the canner to a boil. And I'm going to let those sterilize. 10 minutes is recommended, but you can let them sit on the stove and stay hot, you know, for however long it takes you to prep your ingredients and get everything together. But you do want to make sure that they boil at least 10 minutes. Now, because I'm using fresh green beans, oh, thank you, Jesus, some lovely sunshine just came out. We've been a little cloudy here lately. So because I'm using fresh green beans, I am going to blanch these in boiling water, which I have over there in my Instant Pot, just so my stove area doesn't get too crowded. And I'm going to snap these into about 1-inch pieces. You don't want them to be too big because your beans are not very big, so you do want to snap these into smaller pieces. I'm going to dice my bell peppers. I'm going to coarsely chop my onion. And I'm going to drain and rinse my canned beans. You do want to make sure you drain them. You don't want the canning liquid in these beans. Now, if you are vegan, Here's a little tip. Save the liquid from your chickpeas. You know what it is. For those of you who are vegan, this is an extra ingredient not to be wasted. So it's called aquafaba, and you can use it for making anything that would call for whipped egg whites in a non-vegan recipe. This is a good substitute. The liquid from the chickpeas is a good substitute. So you can reserve that and use it and make meringues or, whatever you would normally use in an egg white recipe. So that's an extra ingredient that you get out of canned chickpeas. So I'm going to wash my green beans. I'm going to snap them, blanch them, and chop up my veggies and get them ready for my pot. So I've got all of my veggies chopped up, prepped. I've got my green beans blanched and drained. Got my onions chopped, my peppers chopped, my canned beans drained. So now it's just time to mix together the pickling liquid. Now, of course, I'm using the Ball Canning book, and I'm modifying this slightly. Ingredients-wise, I'm modifying it, not the pickling liquid. So in here it says you need 3 cups of vinegar. For 5 pints, you need 3 cups of vinegar and 1 1/4 cups of water. So here I have my water. Add in 1 1/4 cups of water. You also need to add in 4 teaspoons of ball salt. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my salt. You can use kosher salt. And I'm just going to grab, now 4 teaspoons is 1 tablespoon plus a teaspoon. So tablespoon, and then I need a teaspoon. Surprisingly enough, when you are canning, using enough salt does matter, because there's a lot of veggies in this recipe, so you need enough salt to flavor everybody. And because salt does not dissolve, sugar does not dissolve good in vinegar, I'm going to go ahead and add in my sugar before I add my vinegar in here. So in goes the sugar. Now the recipe calls for 2 1/2 cups of sugar. That looks like a lot of sugar, but this is 3 bean salad. Now, as I always say in any of my videos, when I'm adding sugar to something that's pickled like this, if you don't want that much sugar, you can reduce the sugar. It just won't be as sweet. It won't affect your, it will not affect your recipe. And because I just can't resist adding some mustard seed to anything that's pickled. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a teaspoon of mustard seed. But again, this is optional. You don't have to add in mustard seed. Now I'm going to go ahead, now that I've got all of that mixed into my Instant Pot. And I'm using my Instant Pot because this is an Instant Pot that I can take from the stove to my Instant Pot insert. It goes on the stove as well as into the insert. Some of them don't, but this model of Instant Pot that I have, I can go from either stove or into the insert. So the recipe calls for 3 cups of vinegar. Now I am going to use part white vinegar, part apple cider vinegar. That's just because I like the color that apple cider vinegar will give your pickled veggies. And you can also, that's 2. You can also use all apple cider vinegar, or you can use all white vinegar. That's entirely up to you. That doesn't have anything. As long as all of your vinegar is 5% acidity, you're good to go. Don't use anything less than 5% acidity. Okay, and goes the apple cider vinegar. And that actually makes quite a bit of pickling liquid, which is good because I was kind of concerned maybe I have too much. Now I did weigh and measure everything. I am, at the end of the day, I am a baker and I like accurate weights and measurements. When you're canning, you kind of want to be, you know, pretty good and accurate. So I'm just whisking this in and getting it all mixed. Now I'm going to take this over to the stove, and you can do this two ways. You can bring this to the boil and then add your veggies in and let it simmer, or you can add everything in and then bring it to a simmer. I'm going to chuck everything into this pot and bring it to a simmer. So I'm going to start off by adding in my chopped onions. Now, I know I said one large, one small chopped onion, but in all honesty, that one large onion was a plenty. So I didn't use but just the one, and I didn't need the other one. And then I have my 2 chopped bell peppers. In they go. Now, you can use all green or you can use all red. But remember, when you're home canning like this, you know, it's kind of like, what kind of drapes do you want to choose for your living room? Can you use some plain blank drapes? Yeah. Will it make any difference? No. But it looks a little better if you use a little bit of color. So that's why I've got the 2 colors. And then I'm going to add in my garbanzo beans. The thing about when you're pickling, and you keep this in mind, anytime most vegetables or anything hits vinegar, they firm up more so than if they were you're just going to cook them in plain water. So you're not going to overcook this because the vinegar is going to make them a little bit firmer anyway. That's why you want to blanch and cook your green beans. If you threw raw green beans in here and then you added them, it's not like we're going to be cooking this for a very long time. Now, in my my pickled dilly bean video, I didn't blanch those green beans because I want them to be a little crisp. You don't want them to be soft. But for your 3-bean salad, you don't want them mushy, but you don't want, crunch. You just want kind of like a nice mellow green bean, which is why I blanch these. By the way, my pickled dilly bean video is up on my channel. You can check that out whenever you want to. Okay, so mix this in. Now, that looks good. Now, I know red kidney beans well enough to know that I should not add these in at this point. Not only are they a little bit more delicate than the garbanzo beans, which are very sturdy, these are already well cooked. And if you're curious when you buy canned veggies, just taste your beans. If these are fine. So I'm going to add these in about maybe 2 minutes into near the end of these veggies simmering, because I don't want to over cook them. So you can see we have a nice big pot of veggies, and it's already looking like 3-bean salad. Now I'm going to bring this up to the simmer. I'm going to follow the directions. So it says you bring to a boil, reduce the heat, and simmer for 15 minutes. Now for me, that's a little bit long. And it has nothing to do with the safety of it. You just want to make sure everything is thoroughly hot and you don't end up with raw veggies. So I'm just gonna bring these to a simmer and probably let them simmer for about 10 minutes. If you feel more comfortable going to 15, you can totally do that. So let's get these onto the stove and bring them to a simmer before we can ladle everything into our jars. Now, while my veggies are simmering, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of my canning equipment together. Now, here I have my jar rings that you need, and I've got a mix match because I don't leave my rings on my jars once it's finished, and I know the jar is perfectly sealed and I'm ready to store them down. So I remove the rings because the rings can get rust underneath them and you don't want that hanging around your jar. So I just take them off You can reuse the rings, but you cannot reuse the lid for processing again. So you don't need to buy new rings, but you do need new jar lids. So I'm going to go ahead and get these lined up and get them washed, and you can sterilize them. You can drop them in boiling water for a couple of seconds if that makes you feel better. Don't leave them in boiling water, but you do want them to be a little hot. That kind of loosens up the wax underneath it and just help your jar to fill up a little better. But if you don't do that, that's fine. You don't have to. Mama always did, so I do. So just put these in a little pan of hot water and let them sterilize. Then of course I have my jar funnel, because trying to ladle something into a jar without it would just be a nightmare. So get a jar funnel. Speaking of a ladle, I have here a stainless steel ladle. Always work with stainless steel whenever you're working with vinegar. And I have a jar lifter, because sticking hands into boiling water to pull out jars just ain't gonna happen. So if you don't have one of these and you want to step into canning, get one of these. As a matter of fact, this would be the first thing you would get. Can you live without this? Yes, but you cannot do anything without a jar lifter. So get yourself a jar lifter. And of course I have my jar wand. This just goes in there and removes all the air bubbles. So I'm going to get all this washed up and sterilized and ready to start ladling things into my jars. Okay, so 2 minutes before my timer is up, I'm going to go ahead and add in my red kidney beans so everything is well heated. And also my kidney beans do not overcook. Now at this point, I don't want to just keep stirring, because it can be a little delicate and I don't want to stir them. So I'm going to put the lid back on the pot and let those everything finish heating until it comes back up to the simmer. And then we're ready to get it into our jars. And our jars are nice and hot. So we'll be ready to go. Okay, I've got my simmered veggies here, and everything is all nicely simmered. And of course, the green beans do change color once you get them simmered. I'm going to put this off to the side, and I'm going to start ladling my veggies into my jars. So I've got my pot of sterilized hot jars here, and I'm just going to pour off the water. And it's always a good idea to have a towel handy when you're working with hot jars. That way you don't have to worry about holding them with your hand. And then I'm just going to ladle in my pickled veggies. Thank you, Jesus. You get a nice little pickled veggie facial when you're doing this. Okay, and then just top it off with some liquid. And you want to leave a good headspace. You don't want to be too skimpy. Okay. And I have this here just so I can keep my jar, whatever you call the thing. I can keep it there so I don't just have to set it directly on my countertop. Okay, so just take your jar one and kind of spin it around a little bit, get the excess air out of your jars, and then always just take a spoon and kind of tap it down. Take a paper towel and wipe off the rim. You don't want any stickiness remaining on the rim, because that could prevent your jar from sealing if there's any food or stickiness stuck on the rim. And then I just took my rings and lids and put them in a pan of hot water, not boiling, but just hot. And go ahead and add it to it. Grab my towel back because this is hot. And then you just want to make sure this is fingertip tight. Don't over tighten it, but just make sure it's fingertip tight. And then go ahead and get this jar into the pot, because you don't want it to start to cool down. Okay, and we'll do another one. Now you do want to let this, once this process and everything You kind of want to let this 3-bean salad marinate for a couple of weeks before you open a jar and start eating. It just gives all of the flavors time to come together. Anytime you got something pickled, you kind of want to give yourself a little bit of at least a week to 2 weeks, even better, just to give the flavors time to meld. Okay, so I've got all of my jars. Thank you, Jesus. It makes me so happy to be able to do this. It is such a blessing to be able to put up your own food. It's hard to describe. It's just a good feeling of accomplishment. And it's coming since homekeeping, and I love every minute of it. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these loaded in. Now I have one extra jar that I don't need, but I always encourage you to sterilize and boil extra jars. It's better to have it and not need it than to not have it and then you needed it and then you have to go back and wash and sterilize, and that gets a little bit frustrating. So I'm going to go ahead and get this back on the stove and bring it to a boil. And we're going to process these pints. Now the ball canning book says to process pint jars for 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on the stove and get them to processing. All right, time is up, and it's time to get the jars out of the canner. Ooh, thank you, Jesus. This is so exciting. Oh, wow. They look so good. Piss. Okay. One last jar. Out she comes. Oh, wow. They look so good. And this is going to be so good. Now, how you choose to eat this, I don't know. We like it. I like to mix it up in my couscous salad. It's really, really good. If you have, say, such as some baby greens or something, you can always open up a jar of this, toss it with some baby greens and maybe some steamed couscous or quinoa. Will be delicious, or millet, and that makes a very good salad. But I just like it. You can serve it alongside, whatever you're serving, like you would any pickled thing. You can treat it just like a regular pickle and it would be delicious. But I am so excited. I'm so excited to be able to eat this. I can't have any now, but as soon as it's marinated and it's had a little time to settle, we can definitely tuck in. You can also, if you don't have access to fresh green beans, don't worry. You can use canned green beans. Say, for instance, if you have green beans that you canned, I don't know about frozen, but previously canned green beans, you can totally use those. Just drain them and then add them in when you add in your red kidney beans, and let everything heat through and simmer for, give it a few minutes, maybe about 5 minutes to let everything simmer. But you can definitely use canned green beans for this. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope you find it helpful and useful and give you a little inspiration about sometimes when you are canning or you're pickling, and especially if you have a garden or access to food, sometimes you have a little of this and a little of that. And this is one of those a little of this and a little of that recipes where you can put some green beans, some canned beans, some bell peppers, and some onions together, and you can make an entirely different condiment simply by putting together a little of this and a little of that. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have a favorite end of the garden pickled recipe that you would like to suggest, by all means, drop your comments down in the comment box. I am always happy to hear from you. And also, if you have any questions, if there's a few more tips or more questions that you have that I didn't answer, always feel free to drop your questions in the comments, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions whenever you ask them. So I hope that you guys enjoy this canning season. It is fall, but there is still things that we can can this time of year. I'm thinking apple butter, apple jelly, pear butter. You can do pickled pears. There are many different types of things that you can still do. Also pumpkin butter. We're in pumpkin season, so you could definitely do, yeah, I see 2 little white pumpkins peeping at me over behind my shoulder. But yes, you can can pumpkin butter, and whatever you make, whatever it is, whether it's cooking, baking, canning, boiling, stewing, or frying, if you make it with love in your own kitchen, you know it is going to be good. So, the good Lord willing, I'll see you guys next time in another video. Take care, y'all. Bye.